In 2022, when Captain Ibrahim Traoré seized power in Burkina Faso, little did the world know this was the beginning of a new chapter, not only for Burkina Faso, but the entire Sahel region. Working closely with his like-minded counterpart, Colonel Assimi Goïta from Mali, the duo quickly defended another like-minded leader in Niger who was under the imminent threat of military intervention by a gang of the puppet leaders from ECOWAS, largely serving the interest of Western colonial masters. They said an attack on Niger meant an all-open war on Mali and Burkina Faso. These declarations were a real big blow to ECOWAS, who had for long been used by France for continued neocolonialism. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's influence is today reading West Africa off French influence, with other countries like Chad, Senegal, and Ivory Coast walking in the footsteps of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, proving to the rest of Africa that it is possible to thrive as Africans without the so-called Western thugs. This brings us to the question, how was West Africa like in the hands of the former puppet leaders? For decades, West Africa was viewed as the last bastion of French influence in Africa. Military bases dotted the region, mining contracts flowed billions of dollars into French coffers, and the nations of the Sahel operated under a system that perpetuated economic dependency and neocolonialism. But today, that era is over. At the heart of this seismic shift stands Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso and the Alliance of Sahel States. Together, they have dismantled the entrenched systems of French dominance, closed foreign military bases, reclaimed natural resources, and lit the fire of a Pan-African movement. This is the story of how West Africa is reclaiming its sovereignty. To understand the present, we must look back. Since the colonial period, France maintained a firm grip on its former colonies in West Africa through military pacts, economic agreements, and political influence. The CFA franc, a currency controlled by the French treasury, kept economies tethered to Paris. French military bases were strategically placed, ostensibly to combat terrorism, but also to project power. Beneath the surface, however, these systems were draining West Africa. Mining contracts heavily favored French companies, and local populations saw little of the wealth generated from their gold, uranium, and other natural resources. This dynamic fueled resentment, and calls for liberation grew louder. In 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré emerged as a symbol of change in Burkina Faso. At just 34 years old, he became the world's youngest head of state, taking charge during a turbulent period of insecurity and economic instability. But Traoré brought something new to the table, a clear vision of sovereignty, independence, and a rejection of foreign interference. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso charted a bold course. French military bases were declared unwelcome, and Traoré's government demanded a revision, or outright cancellation, of mining contracts that exploited local resources. His stance resonated across the region, inspiring other nations to reconsider their relationships with France. Traoré didn't act alone. Alongside Mali and Niger, Burkina Faso formed the Alliance of Sahel States, a coalition dedicated to mutual defense, economic development, and sovereignty. This alliance became the backbone of resistance to French influence in West Africa. One of the alliance's most symbolic victories was the removal of French military bases. In Burkina Faso, Traoré gave French forces a one-month deadline to leave the country, signaling the end of a decades-long military presence. Across the region, similar actions followed. Mali and Niger also expelled French troops, replacing foreign military partnerships with localized and regionally coordinated defense strategies. Sahelian forces took control of their own security, launching successful offensives against insurgents without reliance on foreign intervention. The departure of French troops was more than a logistical shift. It was a statement of independence. It marked a rejection of the paternalistic relationship France had maintained with the region and affirmed that West Africa would forge its own path. Another significant achievement of the Alliance of Sahel States has been the reclamation of natural resources. For years, French companies dominated the mining sectors of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Contracts heavily favored foreign interests, with minimal returns for local economies. Under new leadership, these nations have begun renegotiating and, in some cases, outright canceling exploitative contracts. In Burkina Faso, for example, gold mines once operated by French companies are now managed by local enterprises. Mali's new mining code ensures greater local ownership of resources, while Niger has explored partnerships with non-Western nations to diversify its economic relationships. The economic impact is already being felt. Revenues once flowing to foreign capitals are now being reinvested in infrastructure, education, and local development. This shift is empowering West Africans and breaking the cycle of dependency. The Alliance of Sahel States is more than a political coalition. It's a vision for a new Africa. It seeks to replace foreign dependency with self-reliance, forge economic ties that benefit the region, and promote unity among African nations. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has described the alliance as a beacon for all Africans who yearn for sovereignty and independence. The member states are actively working to build infrastructure, strengthen local industries, and develop regional security frameworks. Their goal is not just to resist foreign influence, but to create a model for sustainable growth and development. As French flags are lowered and foreign troops depart, the Sahel is reclaiming its identity. Captain Ibrahim Traoré and the Alliance of Sahel States have sparked a movement that resonates far beyond West Africa. It's a movement that says Africa will no longer be a pawn in global power struggles. It will chart its own course. This is not just the end of an era for French influence. It's the beginning of a new chapter for Africa. The journey ahead is long and fraught with challenges, but the Sahel has shown the world that sovereignty is not negotiable. The Sahel has spoken. Sovereignty is non-negotiable.